Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the NFL DFS two-point conversion podcast. You can find the three of us as we are together on Twitter. I am at BDintric, Bucks at BPSnow11. Bucks, how we doing?
Doing great, Bubba. Thank you for having me back.
Always. And James, you can find him on Twitter at Pater_DFS. James, how we doing?
What up, man? I'm really, really good today. I had a quesadilla right before this, so I'm full and ready to
Perfect. Well, we'll do our quick wrap around. We'll start with you, Bucks, then James. How did the week go last week, gentlemen?
It went mediocre. I had 5 lineups. I ended up cashing in 2 of the 5 and only lost about 30% of my entries, which isn't so bad considering I yet again had several injured players, and the quarterback I chose for the majority of my lineups, Carson Palmer, did not go off. So came top 500 in the Wildcat. So it wasn't bad.
Good. What about you, James?
It was looking really, really bad up until the Green Bay Dallas game, but I stacked only that game. I had 50% of my stacks were Rodgers at quarterback and 50% were Dak. So
Gotcha.
It turned out fine. I made $9, which is way better than losing over the last couple weeks. So I'm happy to have made enough to buy myself some Qdoba and or next week.
Nice.
There we go. Maybe we'll get to Chipotle next week.
No, Qdoba is way better than Chipotle.
Yeah, I don't have a Qdoba around me. I've never been to a Qdoba.
Oh, their queso is money.
Oh God! Now I have a mission in life. Next time I leave California. All right, yeah. For me, I remember I was telling you guys in our DM, I was doing really, really well until the last 2 drives of the Green Bay Dallas game. I was still fine with everything that was taking place. And the last 5 minutes of football, I literally, between the main slate and the early slate, I made $8, but the last 2 drives cost me about $150 more. So it was a big swing. It was definitely a much better week, as you guys said. Things are looking really close. This podcast is brewing up something nice that's going to happen sooner than later. And this week we have 14 games to attack. We'll start with the Thursday night action. It is in Carolina. Philadelphia Eagles at the Carolina Panthers. Carolina currently a 3-point favorite, over under around 46. Bucks, kick us off. Let us know what you like in this one.
Yeah, I think this is this looks like a great game. I hope that Thursday Night Football doesn't take its effect and it becomes some dud, because I do really like Cam Newton and some of those guys. I think Cam has been playing great after looking horrendous the first couple weeks of the season. He's really started to come through. He's $6,700 this week, which I think he has a chance to reach value pretty easily there. Carson Wentz, I'm not a huge fan of this week. With that being said, it's mainly because I would much rather have Cam Newton at practically the same price point. I do think if we're moving on a little bit, I really, really like Alshon Jeffrey this week. I think in that scheme, in the zone, he can use his size, get to some of those holes, and they're going to use him often. He has had some brutal matchups this year so far, and I think this is his first opportunity to really go off. Also with the wide receiver position, Kelvin Benjamin and Funchess should just eat the Eagles up. I mean, they're hurt, and the cornerbacks they do have are not that good. So I really like Benjamin. I really like Funchess. Funchess and Benjamin are practically the same price point, $6,400 and $6,100. So you could easily stack them with Jeffrey and Newton and have a really, really great stack as long as the Thursday night game doesn't just tank hard. So I really like that. As far as defense goes, I'm not touching anything here, and the running backs, I'm not touching anything here either.
Yep, it sounds pretty similar. What about you, James?
I don't really have anything to add on to that. I think that Cam Newton. I will say that I like Carson Wentz maybe a little bit more than Bucks does, but Cam Newton's locked in right now. I think that. Oh, actually, I take that back. I don't like Carson Wentz very much because Lane Johnson is out. And he completely different team when Lane Johnson is not playing. Carson Wentz looked terrible last year. He was constantly pressured. I'm sure that the offseason he helped himself a little bit, got a little bit more trained up on that. But without Lane Johnson, I worry about Carson Wentz and most of that offense. So that's the only other note that I have on that game. I think that Panthers stacks would be the way to go if you're going to play in this game if you want exposure. Just Cam Newton with one of Funchess or Kelvin Benjamin. I will say that on my sheets, I am now having Funchess as the wide receiver 1 in this offense, not Kelvin Benjamin. So that is something to note for
what made that change?
Market share overall and market share of touchdowns through the season. If we're considering just this season, the market share has been better for Devin Funchess since Greg Olsen went down than Kelvin Benjamin. So Funchess, in my opinion, is now the wide receiver 1.
Yeah, and I echo pretty much everything you guys said. If you're attacking this game, you need to attack the Panthers side of the football. The one thing I will say is the full week slates and then like the prime time Monday or Sunday, Monday, Thursday slates, that's where I've had most of my actual like continued success. And this is one of those that I think a lot of people from everything you've listened to or read is all over this game. They love this game. They think it's going to explode. This could be one of those weeks, make a couple lineups, just fade this game completely. And it'll help you out a ton on the rest of the weekend slate. So that's probably what I'll be doing tomorrow night and crossing my fingers that it's not a boring game, but a high-scoring game. Let's start off with Sunday. We have some big action. Miami at Atlanta, one of our many around double-digit to double-digit favorites. Atlanta minus 11-point favorites at home, over under 47. Atlanta team total of 29 takes the cake on this slate. James, kick us off in Hotlanta, where I think almost everybody in a Falcons uniform is in play. Almost.
Yeah, on my notes, I have Matt Ryan. He's underpriced for this matchup at $7K. If they have a team total of 29, I know they like to run when they get to the red zone, but Matt Ryan at $7K is too cheap, especially if he's going to have Julio Jones back off of a bye week. Mohamed Sanu is more than likely going to be out, making Taylor Gabriel a nice, cheap option against one of the worst pass defenses in the league. Taylor Gabriel is only 4,600. He's down there in that range where you can really get some salary relief and pay up for some other players. My first thoughts when I was building for this slate was an Atlanta stack and just going Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Taylor Gabriel, or Matt Ryan, Devontae Freeman, Julio Jones, something like that. There's a lot of ways you can go here. We like big home favorites. I know that Miami's probably not going to make this competitive, but with the way that Atlanta plays, with how deep Matt Ryan's ADOT is, how deep he throws the ball all the time, it can break any time. I mean, it's not like those guys are going to fall down at the goal line to not score points if they break a big one. So I think that Atlanta stacks are in play. On the other side, Miami is so unbelievably bad. Like, it's almost
be a little nicer about it.
They're terrible.
It's almost hard to describe how bad they are. Like, I saw a graphic on Twitter that they have only scored 34 offensive points. There are 7 instances of individual players being worth more points than they have scored in this. That is bad. I don't see any reason why they turn around here. Jay Cutler sucks. You can take a shot on Devontae Parker if you'd like at 6,200, but no thank you. Just nothing on their side. It's devoid of life for me.
You know what's even worse about that stat you gave out? They scored 16 of them last week, and one was a defensive touchdown.
That's so bad.
Yeah.
Trust me, I couldn't even watch the game. I can't watch my own team anymore. So it's horrific. Bucks, what do you like in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the Dolphins because there's nothing there. I was way off on Cutler's potential last week, and I owe James a lot of beer and a lot of golf. So I will not be making that mistake again. I've deleted him off my spreadsheet forever. But I think a lot of people, because of the price point, are going to go with Jay Ajayi this week, and I hate him this week. Atlanta, they gave up quite a bit when it comes to passing, but they're fairly stingy in the run game, and they're going to be playing from behind. I mean, I would be shocked if they scored 14 points. And I've heard a lot of people talking about Ajayi. I would not play him at all. Matt Ryan, I agree with. Price point is cheap for a potential game where they're going to score 30 plus. With that being said, obviously Sanu likely not playing. I like Gabriel. I like Jones, but at $8,300, I'm not entirely sure that I can trust him to stay healthy an entire game. And so I'm not sure I'm going to go there. Actually, I know I'm not going to go there. But I do like a couple other options. I'm not a big fan of Devontae Freeman because I do think that if Miami does something well, it's stopping the run. But I like Tevin Coleman early in the game. I think that with some of the injuries on the receiving side of the ball, that he should get a little bump in some targets there, and he's pretty cheap at 5,000. Austin Hooper's another one I like. I think that Matt Ryan's going to have to toss the ball around, and Austin Hooper's pretty talented. He hasn't done too much this year, but at $3,500, he has the potential to hit 7-8 targets this game. So we'll see, but I'm not going to be at this game too much because the over-under is 46.5, and I think Atlanta scores over 30 points this game. It's just crazy.
And that's like something we talked about when we were getting all set up here, Bucks, was there's so many high spreads in this game that game flow could really screw up what could be a phenomenal matchup. Like how long do they air it out for before they say screw it, we're just going to pound the rock, or do they air it out the whole time to a bunch of backups? Like if Julio's banged up when they're up 20, do they just put him on the sidelines? There's a lot of weird angles there. Matt Ryan is way too cheap, way too cheap. You guys hit on the rest of them. I do like Julio, but I love Taylor Gabriel because even if they're blowing him out, Gabriel will be on the field regardless. So I like him a lot. I don't mind the Atlanta defense because Cutler will turn the ball over. It's what he does. The only Dolphin, if you want to get an angle in this game, I would look into Landry because they're going to have to feed the rock over and over again through the air. He's going to get his. That's if you just want to be really, really weird or get kind of a game stack of some sort. He will get his, but that's about as far as I go there if you even want to do that. Chicago at Baltimore. Baltimore almost, they're 6.5-point favorites, over under 40 in the game. Another just not good football game. Bucks, you have anything in this one?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, over under 40. Baltimore's favored by 6.5. I think that it's going to be closer than that, if you want my honest opinion. I don't like Flacco. I think that Chicago's defense has been decent, and again, some of the opponents, but they've been decent, especially against the pass. The only person that I'm going for in this game, potentially, depending on which position players I pick and where I need to get to from a price perspective, is going to be Buck Allen. I think if West is still banged up, he has a ton of value there because I think that Baltimore not only will run the rock a bunch, but Flacco will check down to him quite a bit. And then on the other side of the ball, I really don't like almost anything except for Jordan Howard. He's $5,900. Baltimore's giving up about 125 yards a game. And he's caught a few balls every game. I mean, I wish they would use him a little bit more there, but with Tariq Cohen, I understand why not. But $5,900 for a guy that I think is going to touch it 17 times is a pretty good value.
Yeah, I can't argue that at all. Howard and maybe Zach Miller, a little safety valve for rookie quarterback. The only two things I saw in Chicago. And then, honestly, both defenses can be in play if you want to get weird with Chicago. But this is going to be a slow, grinded-out game, in my opinion. But it should be close because Baltimore doesn't have that they're not explosive. The Raiders game was garbage. James, what do you got on this one?
Buck Allen and both defenses are in play for me. Buck Allen is going to continue to be a good receiving back out of the backfield. I'm pretty sure he leads that team in red zone opportunities as well. So that's something to note. But both defenses, I think, are in play. I really liked what I saw from Chicago on the defensive side of the ball last week. I really like Baltimore at home as a defense, especially against rookie quarterback. So it's basically just Buck Allen and the defenses for me.
Yeah, that seems pretty much we're all on the same page there. Let's go to an interesting one that we've kind of been talking about for a few days. Cleveland at Houston. Houston's almost a 10-point favorite, 9.5 points, over under 46.5. James, start us off here.
So first off, I will take the under on 46.5, mainly because I don't know if people think that Deshaun Watson is going to throw for 5 touchdowns 3 games in a row as a rookie. I don't know if people think that Chris Hogan is going to get the Browns over the 20-point threshold easily. 46 is a really large total for me. Next off, I think that Deshaun Watson will be the highest-owned quarterback on the week. Recency bias plays a really big part in this. It's the Browns. They're at home. He's been on an absolute tear. I understand. I really like Kevin Hogan at 4,600, but I don't know who I would pair him with. Like, I have no idea who I would go with. Would I go with Ricardo Lewis? Would I go with David Njoku? Would I go with Duke Johnson? No, I won't, because I'm not going to play Duke Johnson. I don't really like this. I don't like taking the QBs from this game because I think that Watson will crash back down to earth eventually. And even though I do like Kevin's upside, I don't really know who I'd pair him with. Running backs, I do like Lamar Miller a lot at 5,400. If he can hold off Dante Foreman, I think that Houston is in a nice spot to kind of run the ball quite a bit, especially if Deshaun Watson does not play well. My only worry is that the Browns actually do have the 3rd overall DVOA defense against the rush right now. They're legit up front. They have a nice front 7, especially with Myles Garrett. So I do worry about that a little bit. But Lamar Miller is a little bit too cheap if he's going to continue doing well. DeAndre Hopkins at 8,100 is fine if you want to go there. I understand that that's way expensive off what he has been, but people forget 2 years ago when he was doing everything and he was like in the 9K range. And he deserved to be there. And he deserves to be there right now. But I just don't really want to take him. I think he'll be chalky. Will Fuller at 5,200 I think is a better option for me if you're going to hit those deep plays. But that's pretty much all that I really have to say about this game. I think that Ryan Griffin is going to be chalky at 4K. I get it. I understand the Browns are awful against tight ends, but I don't know if I want a chalky below average tight end at 4K at a position that I usually pay down on. So I want to hear you guys' opinion on that, but I don't know that I want to chase chalk on Ryan Griffin this week.
I agree with the Ryan Griffin part. I disagree with some other things, but let's see what Bucks has to say first.
Yeah, I think I'm not touching anybody on the Browns. I mean, I'm more interested in this game just to see how the Houston defense responds to all of the injuries that they've had. But Cleveland's offense is just atrocious. I mean, atrocious. So I'm not touching any of it. If Houston's defense wasn't so pricey this week, I would probably try to play them just because even with some of the injuries. But on the Texans side of the ball, I agree for the most part with James, where Deshaun Watson can't do what he did on a weekly basis. I think his price at $6,700 is too high and is capping some of that value. With that being said, though, and let's not forget that he only completed 16 passes last week. 16. So, I mean, sure, he might complete more passes than that this week. But, I mean, the only way that I'm playing Deshaun Watson, and it's a legitimate argument, is if I see that he has to scramble a bunch because Myles Garrett's all over his ass. And so if he picks up 50 yards rushing, then great. Then he doesn't need to throw more than 2 touchdowns to hit value probably. So I think he's in play. The reason why I'm not playing him this week is because of the chalk factor. So I think he has a chance to hit value. I'm still not playing him. Cleveland front seven is stingy, man. So I'm not touching Lamar Miller or any of them. Even at $5,400, I hope people go there because I won't be there. And then DeAndre Hopkins, I think he is an awesome receiver. But at $8,100 in a game where they shouldn't have to pass that much, and a game where they don't have to rely on garbage time, I'm not paying $8,100 for that guy. When I think that Will Fuller at $5,200, especially early in the game, he has an opportunity to just go bananas. I mean, we know Watson loves throwing it all over the place, and Fuller's going to be streaking down, and the Cleveland pass D isn't that good. The only concern I have is if Myles Garrett gives him enough time to throw it to him. So, and then you wanted thoughts on Ryan Griffin. I think that 4K is too much. I mean, yes, the Browns have given up 3 TDs in the last 2 weeks to tight end. They're terrible against tight end. But at 4K, he's literally going to have to go 5 for 50 and a touchdown to hit value. And in a game where I don't see them having to pass, and a game where I see them using a couple tight end sets to stop Myles Garrett, I don't see it happening.
Yeah. I think this game actually stays closer than we think. I don't think it's going to be a complete just runaway. A big thing for me of why I really like Hogan, besides these $4,600, is you just mentioned with Deshaun Watson being able to run. That's what Hogan does. In college, he ran at least 6 times every game. In just one half of football, they designed runs for him when he was in there. 4 carries for 30 yards. They scored all 14 points in the second half. I know it's the Jets' defense. I get it. But Houston's missing J.J. Watt, and they had another big loss on their defense this week. They're not going to be as dominant as they are. And if they are attacking him, Hogan can move. And he's very intelligent. He knows how to use his tight ends. We saw how good Njoku is. He can dump it off the safety valves. He did that in college all the time. Duke Johnson makes a great safety valve. I think Hogan is a really, really good play for value at 46. I don't understand how we could love Hoyer and McCown and even Cutler last week, and we can't like Kevin Hogan this week. That's the part I don't understand. I think he's a really, really good play at $4,600.
I think that Hogan is a play. I do. I just don't know who I would pair him with. Like in cash, if you want to use him as a really low priced quarterback, I think that's fine. But I always stick to a stacking rule, so I just don't know who I'd stack him with. That's my only problem with him.
Yeah, and that's understandable because it is the Browns, but Ricardo Lewis got 8 targets again last week. I know it's a tougher matchup in Houston. You got Njoku, and Hogan does just feed the tight end, at least in college. So that's something to think about. And then Duke Johnson, but that's $5,100. I don't know if you want to go there. So I agree. That's complicated. It's pick your risk and go. On Houston, Watson is a very good play if you want to pay up for him. Hopkins, I love the Fuller call at $5,200. He's going to have a decent game. And people got to remember with Hopkins and Watson last week, they were like team garbage time. That's not going to happen every week. So you got to take that into account. Let's move on to a NFC North battle. Green Bay at Minnesota. Minnesota 3.5-point home dog, over under 47. Keenum is our starter there. Bucks, take us away in Minnesota.
Yeah, this is a interesting matchup. I think that Sam Bradford he still looked injured last week, so I'm glad the Case Keenum's getting a start. I think he at 5K is in play. I think that Green Bay can be stingy against the pass, but I think that they're going to have to throw the ball. With that being said, I do like Jerick McKinnon. Green Bay is not great against the run, 10th worst in the league. Plus, McKinnon's going to catch passes. So, I mean, he killed it compared to Latavius Murray. So, $4,100. I think he is a really, really, really great option this week. I think he has the opportunity to catch quite a few balls. Kyle Rudolph, I'm not a fan of this week. Price point's great, but Green Bay's been really stingy against that position. And then when you get to Diggs and Thielen, Diggs is always in play. I mean, the guy can score from everywhere. He's a beast. But my choice this week would be Thielen from a value perspective. I mean, he has the same amount or right around the same amount of targets, but he's going to see a bunch of Rollins, who is just a terrible slot receipt or slot corner. So for $1,500 cheaper, I think he has an opportunity, a better opportunity to hit value, and I think he outscores Diggs this week. So, and then the Green Bay side, I mean, outside of the running backs, you can freaking play anybody, honestly. I mean, Rodgers, the Vikings have been stingy, but Rodgers averages 25 points against them. So he shows up to play. I think Jordy Nelson is always in play. $7,100 for a guy that is like practically guaranteed a touchdown. Love it. Devontae Adams, I love him this week at $5,700. And the reason why I like both of those guys more than anybody else is because both of them should get in the slot and see Trey Waynes, who, again, is just atrocious in that position. So both of those guys are in play. I love Devontae at $5,700 this week.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. I think a good game stack could be Rodgers with Nelson and or Adams and Cobb, or you go Adams and Cobb. I love the Nelson play. I said it last week. He does score a touchdown every single game. Like the last 2 years, he's had all but like 2 games. So all you said, all those guys are in play. And then I love sprinkling McKinnon into your Green Bay stack to get a little bit of everything. What do you got on this one, James?
So my first note on this is that I am worried that Ty Montgomery will not have the same volume that he had before he went down.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that Aaron Jones looked really good at 6,700. I will take my running back shares elsewhere. I do healthy, but I think that it's going to be a timeshare between those two now, with Aaron Jones actually being early down back and Ty Montgomery being the 4-minute drill back. So I just don't like his volume there. With that being said, you brought up that Trey Wayne sucks, and that is very true, and I am excited to roster Cobb again. I had a lot of him last week, and I will probably have plenty of him this week if the cards break right, depending on where I want to go with my money at wide receiver. That slot is where you attack Minnesota. We don't really want to attack Xavier Rhodes, even though Jordy Nelson he's always in the end zone. So Jordy Nelson's fine. I don't really want exposure to this game. I think people will be on McKinnon more than they probably should be with other running backs in good spots. I know that McKinnon he played on like 47 out of the 70 snaps last week, on Monday, but he only had 4 more carries than Latavius Murray did, and it was obvious that they were in a hot hand situation. So I understand the play. I get it. He has more upside than Latavius Murray, but we don't know what they're going to do with those running backs. And I'm really, really trying to make a point this week to stay away from committee backs. I'm really, really trying to stay on running backs with very secure market share in their backfield. So I probably won't have much McKinnon, but I understand the play. I think that Aaron Rodgers is in play at 7,300, but that's probably all that I would have besides him and Cobb.
Yeah, the reason why I like McKinnon, I think, more this week is because with that pass rush, I think they're going to have to dump it off to him quite a bit. And so I could easily see him get 5 or 6 catches.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, the Packers have been horrible versus like receiving backs. They've let them torch them all year long. 25th in DVOA this year. So it is a good option. But I'm glad you mentioned that one part, James. It's something we talked about, I think, Sunday night or Monday morning. Those committee backs, like we saw it in the Niners game, it's such a week-to-week thing. It literally is week-to-week. It could be a completely different story. Latavius Murray came into the year as the potential starter. Cook takes his job. Now McKinnon gets the role. You got to know they still like Latavius. He's still an option eventually. So it wouldn't surprise me. I do think McKinnon's the guy, but we've been right maybe 50% of the time on this. It's crazy. But the Green Bay side is locked and loaded. So, the passing game of Green Bay. A game that should be full of fireworks, and I like the visiting team a little more as I researched it. You got Detroit at New Orleans. New Orleans, a 5-point home favorite. Over-under 50.5. James, kick us off in New Orleans.
So Drew Brees is probably going to be one of my highest-owned quarterbacks this week. I don't care that he's going to be chalky. This is a New Orleans team that is coming off of a bye week, gets to play at home against one of the defenses that is giving up the most fantasy points in the league to wide receivers. I do not care about chalk on Drew Brees. I will differentiate elsewhere. I will say that I'm probably going to try to avoid Slay if I can and roster less Michael Thomas. I'll still have some. I'll probably be a little less than the field on him. But I am more interested in Ted Ginn Jr. and Willie Snead. I think that Willie Snead coming out of the bye week is a sneaky spot, especially because he will line up in the slot quite a bit and get to take on Quandre Diggs, who sucks. So I like Willie Snead. I like Ted Ginn. I am okay with Michael Thomas, and I love Drew Brees. The running back situation is something we need to talk about, though. With Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara now being the only running backs in that backfield after Adrian Peterson got traded away, it sounds like to me that Alvin Kamara is going to be higher owned. In that case, I want more Ingram anyway. I think that Ingram is the back that you attack in this backfield. But I think that Alvin Kamara is going to be chalky, which would be cool because I want a lot of Mark Ingram. But then if I have a lot of Drew Brees, I don't know how I'm going to get a bunch of Mark Ingram into my stacks. So I don't know how I'm going to deal with that yet. But I do know that I want Drew Brees and Mark Ingram somewhere a lot of. That's all I got. On the Detroit side of the ball, I think that Matthew Stafford is fine, but they do play at a significantly slower pace on the road. And he hasn't topped 300 yards more than twice in the last, I think, calendar year. He doesn't throw for a lot of yards anymore, although he is very efficient in the red zone. So I don't really want much of Detroit. They don't really have a deep threat anyway right now besides Kenny Golladay, who's injured. So I think that I really just want Drew Brees and a New Orleans Saints onslaught.
What do you got, Bucks?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Lions side of the ball this week. I think Theo Riddick is potentially in play at $4,300 because he's going to have to catch the ball quite a bit, playing from behind. I like Golden Tate because he seems to catch a shit ton of balls, especially against the Saints. But I'm not a fan of his price point. There's a ton of guys around that price point that I feel are much better value. Getting to the Saints, pretty much anybody that has hands is in play. So Drew Brees is incredible value at $7,200, I think. Kobe Fleener's another guy that I like this week, $3,200, and he's talented. But yeah, you have Thomas, Snead, again, they're all in play. I really like Willie Snead at $4,700. He can exploit that matchup and he has the potential to go off at any point in time. I think this is where you play him, get him super cheap, because in 3 weeks he's going to be $6,800 or something like that. So I like him this week. Now, as far as the running backs, I agree that I think Alvin Kamara is going to be chalkier, and I'm shocked that he is more expensive than Ingram. With that being said, I think Detroit is fairly good against stopping the run. I'm not sure that if you give Mark Ingram the ball 17, 18 times that you're going to stop him, but they are pretty good at stopping the run. So, $4,400 though for a guy that should be the clear-cut carry back is awesome, but that one scares me a bit, because I think that I think Drew Brees goes off, and when I look at the points being scored, I'm not sure that he gets a touchdown this game, which is what I would need from him.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything on the New Orleans side of the ball. Brees, probably one of the top quarterbacks on the week. I don't mind Michael Thomas, but I'd rather go cheaper to Snead, and I love Ted Ginn at 3,600. I'd also willing to have both of them with Brees and go that route. I don't mind Fleener, but the Detroit side of the ball, I like, because I know you said they've been slow this year, but if we want to go off of that, Detroit's also the 8th best defense in football, so pick your poison. Stafford can come from behind in a dome. We've seen that not just at home, on the road. He does that very well. But what I do like is Eric Ebron at 3K. The Saints are one of the worst teams in football. They're in the bottom. They're 23rd this year in football against tight end. So I like Ebron at 3K as some value. But I also do like, you mentioned it, James, they play a lot slower on the road, is Amir Abdullah at $4,900. They've been giving him almost 20 carries a game for like the last 2 to 3 weeks. He even gets 4 to 5 targets a game out of the backfield. So they're giving him almost 25 touches a week. If they want to slow it down to keep the Saints off the field, I think in a GPP, Abdullah at 49 could bring back some very nice value, because they're giving him all the touches in the world until it's basically time, okay, we have to abandon everything. And that won't be till at least halftime or later. And even last week when they were down big against Carolina, he was still in the game getting the action. So I think Abdullah at 49 is a cheap GPP running back that shouldn't just be completely ignored in this matchup. Just like in the Green Bay game we talked about earlier with McKinnon, you could slide Abdullah in there with your New Orleans stack, have a game stack, and have some fun, in my opinion.
The last thing I want to mention this game, because I think that because I think Detroit's going to have to throw the ball a bunch, and he has been prone in the past to mistakes, I do think the Saints defense at $2,700 is in play.
Okay. Let's move on to another big spread game. The New England Patriots go in to face the New York Jets. Jets 9.5-point home dogs. Over under 47.5. New England's got about a 28.5 team total. Bucks, take us away.
Yeah, this is this is a game that I think it'll be closer than 9.5 points. I'm not saying the Jets are going to win by any stretch of the imagination, but the Patriots defense is just god awful, man. So, I mean, if you think that, like, when I looked at McCown, who's not terrible, but I'm not going to play him this week. But if you look at some of their weapons like Elijah, Safarian Jenkins, Jermaine Kearse, I mean, they have an opportunity to put up some points here against just an atrocious defense. I mean, New England's defense giving up over 300 yards passing a game, 125 rushing yards a game. I mean, it's crazy. So I think at $4,600, and I need to monitor the Bilal situation. Elijah McGuire, I think, is in play at 4,600, but he is going to be super popular. Safarian Jenkins, sucks that his price is $4,300 because I think he is a guy that's going to get a ton of targets this week. And I honestly might still target him at $4,300 because I think he's going to catch 5 balls, and if he can get in the end zone, he still hits value. And then lastly, I think Jermaine Kearse. I mean, if New England gets up like they're supposed to, they're going to have to toss the ball around a bunch, and Jermaine Kearse has been pretty consistent. He's a favorite weapon there, so I like him this week as well. Now, on the New England side, this game is interesting because Jets defense is fairly stingy against the pass, and they give up a F ton of rushing yards. And so this is one of those weeks that, depending on how the first 20 minutes goes, I could see Gillislee at $5,500 just take over. And this is one of those we talked about a couple weeks ago that Belichick has a couple games a year where he's legitimately like a running back game. And with Brady being banged up a little bit, it could be this game. I don't like Gronkowski this week at $6,800. I don't like Cooks at $7,600. The one guy I like, mainly because he is a touchdown machine, is Chris Hogan. But even then, $7,000 is getting super pricey. So if I had to go with anybody, give me Amendola at $5,600 if I want a piece of that game, and give me Gillislee.
Yeah, that Hogan price tag, like you said, he's hard to ignore because he is their touchdown machine. But, man, $7,000, he has climbed up the ladder. And, I'll let James kick us off with your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, so I'm kind of on the other side of the spectrum. I think this game's going to be a blowout. I don't think – so I had this conversation earlier in the Daily Roto Slack chat that I don't think that the New England's defense is going to continue to be this bad. They have a couple pieces missing from last year. They traded away a couple guys. They're missing a couple guys, but the personnel is much better than 32nd in the league. And I just don't think that it's going to continue to be that bad. And I would be inclined to think that it would get better against the Jets, who don't have good personnel.
You'd hope so, yeah.
I think this game is going to be a rout. I think the Patriots win handedly, and therefore I agree that I am willing to go with a Mike Gillislee game here rather than a Tom Brady game, just because we know that when they blow opponents out, we know what's going to happen with that running back. It's going to be Gillislee getting fed the rock inside the 10-yard line until he hammers his face into the ground and in the end zone. So I'm into a Mike Gillislee game here. I don't want to touch Chris Hogan just because I think that they are going to kind of baby Tom Brady a little bit. A lot of this sets up really well for the running backs for the Patriots. So the only other option that I really think would be good is actually Rob Gronkowski. And that's because when you think about the Jets and the personnel that they do not have anything ready to take on Gronk. Like anything. And he could easily go 4 for 110 and 2 touchdowns against the middle of that field. Like that wouldn't surprise me at all. But with that being said, I'm more on Mike Gillislee, and I actually think that at 3,300, the New England Patriots defense would be a nice contrarian option this week.
Yep, you nailed it, James. That's what I had circled right here. I don't mind the New England defense. The Cleveland Browns shut down the New York Jets last week. That was how bad that was. And New England they played last Thursday, so they have extra time to prepare for this game. Belichick knows the Jets. I know it's not Ryan's Jets, but he knows the Jets. So I don't mind the defense at 3,300. The running back situation, I like White and Gillislee. If it's a blowout, Gillislee takes over. But White will get his early on, and for 5,200 could reach value for you. If you don't think New England's going to shut him down, well then, yeah, the Jets have tons of weapons in play, but I'm going to stay elsewhere. McGuire's intriguing, but like you said, Buck, super chalky. And I hate the price bump on ASJ. It just took 1 week, and he's already up to $4,300. One good week. So that sucks. But, yeah, I like the defense in this game, and as good as it looks on paper, it just doesn't feel like a good DFS game for me. Let's give Bucks his game. Niners at the Redskins. Redskins 9.5 point home favorites. Over under 46.5. I'll let you have the floor on this one, Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, 9.5. I mean, as a longtime Redskins fan, I would, if I had $1 million to put on this game, I would put it on San Francisco to cover that spread. I don't.
You sound like me with my Dolphins. It's that bad.
I don't think they win, but Washington is notorious for playing down to competition. I mean, they are bad, and I think this is the only guy on this whole squad that I am going to play this week. I think Pierre Garçon has a game. I think that with Norman out, he is going to just be all over Breland and make him just his B. So I think Pierre legitimately can catch like 8 or 9 balls this game. So at $6,300, Pierre's the only person on that side of the ball that I'm touching. Although Goodwin at 4,100 is just crazy too. So those two I'm looking at, but I do think this is a Pierre game, and this is the first time, and Rashad Breeland's good, but this is the first time in a bunch of games that Pierre has like a decent matchup. So I think he'll go off. Now on the Redskins side of the ball, I like Kirk Cousins this week. I'm not a huge fan of $6,800, and he tends to spread it around quite a bit. So for game flow reasons, I think that Rob Kelly could potentially rush the ball 18 to 22 times this week. They want to rush the ball. It just depends on how fast they can get off to a good pace. I mean, the San Francisco defense is not good against the rush. So if they decide they're going to pound that rock, that limits Kirk's value. So Rob Kelly is definitely one that I'm looking at $4,800 that I think will be cheap and really low owned because he has not played well this year. But they're going to move the ball, and Rob Kelly should get some goal line carries this game. So I like him this week. The only other person that I would potentially play is Jamison Crowder. The slot corner for San Francisco is just bad. And I think that we've talked about normalization earlier this year in the podcast. Jamison Crowder is a good receiver. And last year they went to him early and often, and they have not done that this year. And I think that after the bye week, they decide that that's got to be part of the game plan. And I think that he has a breakout game, and he's $4,000. So he easily could hit value. It just depends on whether he gets in the end zone. But I have him at 6 for 75 yards this game.
You don't think normalization works for Terrell Pryor either? Just a question.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it came down to price.
Okay, that's fine. That's understandable.
4,000 for Crowder, 5,700 for Pryor. I do think Pryor will get his. And like I said, Kirk just spreads the ball around a bunch. I just think they go to Crowder this game.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious on that one because you figure you get it eventually, hopefully. God, James, what are your thoughts on this ball game?
So my running back rankings after I ran them, I have Le'Veon Bell first, Kareem Hunt second, and then Chris Thompson third.
Yep.
And there is good that he is slated for plenty of the receiving mark share. Right now he has we have him projected for over four receptions, full receptions over Daily Roto right now, with a 6 market share of the targets. So that's really great. San Francisco is 14th in DVOA against rushing, but 22nd against receiving backs. So that's another one for Chris Thompson. I do think that Rob Kelly has a very good chance to vulture plenty of the runs. But my point on this is that both Rob Kelly and Chris Thompson are in play as home favorites with huge totals on their teams. They are huge favorites. We have them projected to run the second most plays on the slate at 68. So Rob Kelly and Chris Thompson make sense for me. I also love Terrell Pryor. Love Terrell Pryor, even at 5,700. I might make the most balanced lineup on the planet this week with just like all of the balance. Like my quarterback will be slightly expensive, and then I'll just have a whole bunch of guys that are between 5K and 6,500. And then
there's so many guys there this week. It's crazy, man.
Adams and Cotton right there. Done.
Yeah. Yep. So I love Terrell Pryor. I think I'm fine with Jameson Crowder. He just hasn't been getting the volume that really necessitates me to want to play him over Pryor.
Exactly.
But for the price, I can understand the play. I'm surprised to mention tight end guy Jordan Reed.
He sucks.
He's
which play does he get hurt on?
Oh, look, man, I understand that he is a risk for injury. I get that. But the time that I want to use him is when he's as healthy as he can possibly be, which would be coming off of a bye week.
True. Very true.
Oh, when he's on, he's Gronk-esque, honestly. But
right, he's mini Gronk, and he's only 5K this week. Like, that's the cheapest he's been since November of 2015. He is really cheap right now. So I think that I have a lot of interest in Washington as a stack. And you can bring it back with Pierre Garçon. You can bring it back with Goodwin if you'd like. I don't mind either one of those options. I really, really like Washington as a stack overall. Any of the options that we both listed are fine.
Yeah. Your Cousins, I like Thompson a lot just because you get the pass and rushing ability, but I agree. If it's a blowout, Kelly's in play, so pick your poison. I'll go Thompson first just for the fact Bucks set it out the gate. This game will be closer than the spread thinks, so Cousins will be throwing around a little bit. Crowder, Pryor, yes. On the other side of the ball, Garçon, and neither one of you guys mentioned it, and he'll probably be chalky this week, but remember, we've talked about him off and on since week 1 this year. George Kittle's still only $3,400, and the Redskins are 31st in football against the tight end. I think Kittle makes for an interesting play also if you're not going to Reed as a piece of the Niners to go back with the Redskins in this matchup. You guys want nothing to do with Kittle?
No, I think I said it a couple weeks ago that I'll play a tight end against the Redskins every single week. I just think he'll be chalky.
Yeah, I think he will be too. That's my concern.
My problem is that he not only won somebody $1 million last week, but he also middle of the screenshot for Big T making $385,000 off of $1,500 in entry fees. Like, he is going to be, and he has a cool name.
Super shock.
He's going to be owned more than I want. And one thing that is an interesting fact that most people don't know is that you should treat tight ends like you treat running backs. You want big home favorite tight ends. I'm not sure where the correlation comes into play, but for some reason it's something about running out the clock towards the end of the game. Tight ends tend to get more targets from their quarterbacks in those short situations when they're trying to burn out the clock. So I don't really like taking a road dog tight end that is kind of like, especially if it's going to be chalky. I understand the play. I just don't think that I'll have any.
Another reason why that big home favorite can be in play is if they're going to score that much, they'll be in the red zone, and a lot of those teams have decent tight ends in the red zone for the most part. So there's a lot to like about that. So, yeah, I just wanted to throw Kittle out there to see what you guys thought, because I do agree, chalk definitely, but I know we've been big on targeting Washington, so I kind of wanted to get a group talk on that one real quick. Let's go Tampa Bay at Arizona, heading to the afternoon portion. And if you guys, not you two, but the listeners, check out the slates. They even broke up in your afternoons to the evenings. There's like 10 different options now if you want to spend all your money and all your rate. They're all out there. So check that out. But Tampa Bay at Arizona, Arizona 2.5-point home dogs, over under 44.5. And this one smells like an over to me. James, kick us off in the desert.
So this game has one of the only players that I when I looked at this slate and when I started researching, this is the game with one of the only players that I am going to lock this week, and that is Deshaun Jackson.
Yes, thank you.
It's a pod consensus.
Dude, I am going to continue to attack Justin Bethel
until
that dude
yes.
is not anymore. Like, every single week he gives up a 60-yard touchdown. Every single week. That's the only thing that Deshaun Jackson does is 60-yard touchdown. So, like, I'm locking him. He doesn't cost enough to go up against Justin Bethel. And even if he was way more expensive than $5,800, I would pay $7K for Deshaun Jackson in a spot. Like, this is my lock of the frickin' century on Deshaun Jackson. Yeah. So now that I got that ran out of the way. I think that this is a nice over spot. I like both of these teams. They both throw a lot. Neither one of the defenses are great. Arizona is actually one of the worst teams in the league against the deep ball, ranking 27th overall right now in DVOA. So I like both of these teams quite a bit. One thing that I was talking to you about earlier is I might be interested in Adrian Peterson.
I almost forgot that didn't happen.
God.
I might be interested. He's 3,400, and if you think that at 3,400 he gets 12 to 15 carries, like worst case 12 carries, right? What if Arizona gets out to a little bit of a lead, pick sixes, Jameis Winston?
They throw more with the lead.
Yep.
Look, hold on.
Throw all the time, period.
This is not a data play. This is not like I'm looking at because I understand that this is an awful.
Oh, that's a clip right there.
I'm just going to admit that right there. If Arizona picks off Jameis Winston 4 times like they did the last time these two teams met, they're going to run the ball plenty. And if they run the ball plenty, Adrian Peterson's going to run the ball like 15 to 18 times, and 15 to 18 runs at home for Adrian Peterson. Like, what if he falls into the end zone once at 3,400 with 15 to 18 runs? That's good.
Yeah.
That's
I get the value angle. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'd rather take some of the other value plays I mentioned that you guys have laughed at me about and go those directions.
I understand, man. I get it. Like I said, this isn't a data play, and I don't know that I'm going to do it, but I do need to continue to think about this one and monitor it. Other than that, I love Deshaun Jackson. I love Mike Evans. And then if I'm going to take a wide receiver for Arizona, it's going to be probably John Brown.
Yep.
Because he did come back do really well last week. So I think that he's going to continue to take the market share of both J.J. Nelson and Jerron Brown and take over the number 1 wide receiver on the outside again.
Well, never. I won't even bring it up again. Never mind. You try your Adrian Peterson out. Just try it out. Yeah. Lux, what are your thoughts on this game?
Cardinals D is going to score more than Adrian Peterson.
Oh.
I will take that. I will take it.
So after you mentioned that earlier, I was looking at that. And here's where I could see that potentially paying off. You know that Palmer's going to throw it 1,000 times. You know they're going to be in the red zone a ton. If you have John Brown, who did it multiple times last year, where he got tackled at the 1.
Yep.
If you think AP is getting those goal line carries, then yes. At $3,400, all he needs is 1 touchdown and 40 yards to hit value. And so I could see it. It almost, honestly, at that price would make sense for me to stack Palmer, John Brown, and AP, hoping.
Yeah. Yes.
Don't give in.
Hoping that covers all of it, and praying that Andre Ellington doesn't get a touchdown. Because
there's my point right there. There's a committee, James.
But he's 3,400. Like,
Yeah.
I get it, but he's 3,400. Like,
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you were playing Rawls last week, except he's at home on a team with a competent, quarterback and O-line.
Well, so, dude, you play 20 max, right? I mean, you should have him. You should have him somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
So,
like Bucks and I usually keep it lower. 20 max, yes. 100% agree with that comment.
Yeah. All right, moving on. the one guy that I typically do not play him, but I think he's in a fantastic spot this week is Larry Fitzgerald at $6,800. He is against one of the worst, and I've said this like 3 times already, but he's against one of the worst slot corners ever. And he is so huge compared to him. I think he's 6'3", 6'4", and this corner's 5'9". I think he's going to get a ton of target. I think this is one of those 12 target games for him. And Carson Palmer at $6,100 is just insane. I mean, they pass 71% of the time, almost 80% in the red zone, and Tampa's terrible against the pass. So, Carson Palmer is like the guy that I'm gravitating to. I'm hoping he's not like chalky. I hope everybody goes to Houston and Breeze because I'm going to have a lot of Palmer, and I'm going to stack him with Fitz and Brown, John Brown, that is, and hope they just go bananas. Because like you guys mentioned, I think that 44.5 is just stupid. I think it should be one of the higher totals of the week. On the other side of the ball, I love Deshaun Jackson. I'm not going to even talk about it. He's one of my locks of the week too. Mike Evans at $6,900 is just crazy cheap. I mean, crazy cheap for Mike Evans. And most of the time being on Peterson bothers me, and I wouldn't play a guy. But at $6,900, he's still going to get a bunch of targets, and he did have a good game against them last year, I think. So I like both of those guys. Cameron Brate is another guy that's getting some targets, and he has huge upside. So if I think that Jackson, Evans, Brate could potentially have great games, Jameis Winston's going to be in play for me as well. I think it's $6,200 with that game and that flow that could easily be met. Now, if you had me pick a guy at 61 or 6,200 yards or $6,200, I'm definitely going Palmer. But I could definitely see him being in play. I think some people will gravitate towards Doug Martin this week at 5,800 because he played well. But I think that Arizona's D is pretty stingy, and I wouldn't touch him.
Yeah, we're pretty much all on the same page, almost all on the same page in this game. I'm not playing the running backs at all. I could look at Ellington if you think it's going to be a shootout. I get it. He's getting his looks. I just want to see what that whole backfield situation is. There's other options on the slate running back position to go to for me. But I love Palmer. Like you said, Winston is in play. I go Palmer over Winston too. Jackson definitely. Evans, he had, I think, 6 or 8 catches against Peterson last year and a touchdown, I believe. So he did just fine. He's a monster. Big guys are going to be okay against him. He just throw it up, he'll get it. And then Fitz and John Brown, those are the plays I had written down here. You could make a nice little game stack here. I think that total's too low, and it's one of those that I will definitely build a lineup around on Sunday. Rams at Jaguars. Jaguars 2.5-point home favorites, over under 43.5. James, kick us off in this barn burner.
So this is indeed a barn burner. I don't want any of the passing game, but I think that Leonard Fournette and Todd Gurley are both entirely in play.
Yes,
that's earlier this week about Fournette versus Hunt, because apparently Hunt is a better play than Fournette, but I disagree with that. I just completely disagree with that. I think that Fournette is getting fed the rock. They do not want to let Blake Bortles throw that ball. That is literally the last thing on their agenda. They're just giving Fournette the ball and saying, go out there and punch people in the helmet with your body and just keep running forward. And he's doing it well.
Yeah.
The Rams, on the other hand, do not have a good rush defense. They are down in the bottom of the league. If I'm paying up for running back, I am paying for Leonard Fournette and hoping that he continues to just be Adrian Peterson 2.0 like people thought that he would be in the beginning of the season.
Are you going to have AP and Fournette?
I should.
You should. You almost have to.
Oh, man. That is a thought. I'm going to build that tonight. On the other side, Todd Gurley had a down week last week because for some reason they looked at all the success that they've been having running the ball with Todd Gurley and throwing the ball to Todd Gurley, and they're like, hold on.
Nah, we're good.
Let's try something different this week. And failed miserably.
It was like Jeff Fisher was back.
Who? What?
It was like Jeff Fisher was back.
Yeah, it was awful. I have no idea what they were doing last week, but I think that they get back to utilizing Todd Gurley in a super high usage fashion again. 7,700 is a nice discount off of what I played him at last time. So I think Todd Gurley's in play. Other than that, I don't want anything. Jacksonville's defense is legit, and Blake Bortles is only going to throw it like 16 times.
Yeah, I'll say it really quickly and give it to you, Bucks. I like both running backs a ton. I think Gurley's going to go super low owned because of what happened last week. And I love the Jacksonville defense if you aren't using St. Louis. So those are the three things I've looked at. But you could almost put both running backs in your lineup and go cheap at receiver. Bucks, what would you like to do in this game?
Yeah, I literally have two names on my list, and that's Fournette and Gurley. I love both of them. Fournette's just a freaking monster. So is Gurley for that matter. And Jacksonville, if they do have a weakness, it's against the rush. I mean, they're giving up 146 rushing yards a game. That's fucking terrible.
And Bell didn't even do that last week. So it was the 4 weeks prior.
Yeah, dude. So I mean, you look at like the rankings. The Rams are 27th against the rush, and Jacksonville's 31st. So give me those two, and then I can move on to Adrian Peterson at $3,400, and I can still get all my receivers like Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, there's your three running backs. You have a flex and two running backs. You can go banana. All your $5,000 to $6,000 receivers, go nuts.
Yeah, so I mean, if I go Fournette and Gurley, which I will do in one of my lineups this week, then I'm going to have to find somebody down there cheap. And so I would be looking at probably not AP, but I'd be looking at somebody with massive upside.
Ted Ginn Jr.
That's cheap. Ted Ginn's one. Goodwin's one. I mean, you have options there, especially like Goodwin. If you think that Garcon's going to be on Breeland, Washington is terrible after Breeland. I mean, terrible. So there's a couple options there, but I think that these two running backs are probably two of the best options this week, and have, even at their price point, have probably the highest upside of anybody on the slate.
Yep, most definitely. Now, let's head to an interesting game in Arrowhead. Pittsburgh at Kansas City. Kansas City is a 4-point home favorite. Over-under is 46. It's very interesting because Kansas City, to many, is the best team or one of the best teams in football. You got Pittsburgh going on the road. Big Ben after 5 interceptions. Bucks, kick us off here because I know you have some interesting thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know, anybody that listens to this or follows me on Twitter knows that I think that Kansas City is overrated. I don't think Kareem Hunt is as good as everybody thinks he is. And I don't think that they have the necessary weapons to make this sustainable deep in the playoffs. With that being said, I think that I think Kareem Hunt is in a good spot, but I am not playing him for $8,200. I think that Pittsburgh got torched last week, mainly on one play at the end of the game, and that's skewing a lot of their numbers. I mean, if you look, they're giving up 136 rushing yards a game. If you take away that run, it's under 100. So I think that that number is skewed, and I think that they are going to try to shut down Kareem Hunt and let Alex Smith beat him through the air. So I'm not a big fan of him this week. The one guy that I am a fan of, and I'm not typically a fan of guys at the tight end position at this price point, but Travis Kelce at $6,100, I think can exploit that secondary of Pittsburgh. So he might be the only guy that I potentially go to. On the other side of the ball, and this is where I think it gets interesting, I think Ben Roethlisberger is better than he has been playing, and I think that at $5,700, if I think Antonio Brown is going to be a monster again, which I do, if I think that Martavius Bryant or Juju Smith-Schuster have a decent game, if I think Jesse James is in play, which I do, if I think Le'Veon Bell catches another 7 balls, which I think he will, then I am all in at $5,700. I think he's a better quarterback than that. I think that the 5 interceptions is just ridiculous last week, and I think he will be super low owned at this price point. So I am leaning towards having one Roethlisberger stack and the rest Carson Palmer and moving on.
What are your thoughts on this one, James?
Yeah, so he already hit it that the Pittsburgh defense is their rushing numbers are going to look worse than they should, based almost entirely off of a 95-yard touchdown run last week by Leonard Fournette, which if he didn't have that, he probably would have broken 100 yards regardless, but he wouldn't have hit the 180 that he had or 185 or whatever. Yeah. So I think their numbers are a little bit inflated. On the other hand, Kansas City has looked very, 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 very good in all aspects of the game over the last couple of weeks since the beginning of the season. It kind of reminds me of Matt Ryan last year, where Matt Ryan wasn't really this incredible, efficient, fantastic quarterback until last year, and then just exploded. And all of his numbers went through the roof. And I think that it's kind of the same thing that we're seeing with Alex Smith, where he's having this career-defining year as far as efficiency and where he's throwing it and how good he's been. So I think that does continue. I think that's a real thing. With this game, Travis Kelce is my main target if he clears the concussion protocol.
Yeah,
exactly.
If he doesn't, then look at the secondary wide receivers like Albert Wilson, if he practices and is healthy for the game, I think is an interesting choice. But I do think that Kareem Hunt is going to have more ownership than he should. Even if he's a very good running back, I do think that he will have more ownership than he should at 8,200, considering he doesn't have complete ownership of the touchdown market share. We saw Charkandrick West steal 2 touchdowns from last week. We saw Alex Smith steal 1. We've seen Travis Kelce steal some. So I really just want Travis Kelce. On the other side of the ball, Le'Veon Bell is complaining about not getting enough carries, so I'm inclined to think that after a 5-interception game where Ben Roethlisberger threw the ball 55 times, he might be a little sore both physically and mentally, and they might want to just feed Le'Veon Bell. They usually do on the road anyway. So I think Ben Roethlisberger actually throws less than 30 times this week, and they just feed it to Bell the entire game. Kansas City isn't exactly a great team against the rush regardless, and Le'Veon Bell. So I think this is more of a Lev Bell game than it is Ben Roethlisberger game.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking with it. I understand everything Buck said. He'll be cheap. He's low owned. I get it all. I think this is more of a physical just battle. 2 teams that are going to grind it out. And you said, like you said, James, the way to beat Kansas City is with the running game. So Lev Bell's in play. You can always look at guys like Brown, and I do like Juju Smith-Schuster at 3,600 as a value play. I think that's tremendous. When you look at Kansas City, that's where they can get exploited a lot in the passing game, is in like the third wide receiver position. There's a lot to be said there. On the Kansas City side of the ball, Alex Smith keeps getting it done. He's only 6,400, but I'd rather go to Carson Palmer at 61 or even Jameis at 62. Just not a lot for me to like outside of Kelce with Kansas City. at the price points we're at. So I like Juju Smith-Schuster at 36, and I don't mind if you want to try either defense, really, because I think this is more of a grind out. I don't think it's going to be a big shootout. There'll be a couple turnovers. I'm not as big on this game as some people are.
Last thing I'll mention for people that like playing, and I typically do, like Martavius Bryant, who I think eventually will end up being another touchdown machine. They're likely going to move Brown around quite a bit, and I think that Marcus Peters is likely going to be on Martavius most of this game. So that would bring Juju even more in play for me. And that's why I think Antonio has a big game, because outside of Marcus Peters, there's really nobody there that is that good.
Yeah, Juju is definitely a guy that I have circled as a value play in a lot of my lineups. Let's go to the last afternoon game. We got the Chargers at the Oakland Raiders. There's no spread. There's no total as we're waiting for Derek Carr, who practiced a bit at the end of last week and has practiced pretty much all this week. So there's a good chance he's playing. These teams always like to play some entertaining games. James, kick us off in Oakland.
So my guess at a tentative line here would be Oakland favored 23.5 with as a 2-point favorite against the Chargers. That's my tentative. That's my guess. Is that Oakland will be a less than a field goal favorite visiting the Chargers. Moving on, though, I'm going to keep this kind of short. I think that Melvin Gordon got his price bump. He is where he should be. He's appropriately priced. With that being said, I don't really want any of him this week. I really like Terrell Pryor. No, wait.
Williams.
Terrell Williams. That one. Someone podcast. I really like Terrell Williams. I think that he's a really, really good option. He's 5,400, another one of those mid-priced guys with huge upside. Oakland is one of the worst teams in the league against the deep ball, as well as Arizona. So this is kind of the same home run play as Deshaun Jackson. I'm just not quite as sure of it, but I do want a lot of Terrell Williams. I don't mind Keenan Allen, but at 7,900,
yeah,
I have other places to spend the money. It's not like I don't like him. It's just I don't know that I will go there at wide receiver. I just have other places to put the money. At tight end, Hunter Henry got plenty of targets last week. I was dead wrong on his breakout for last week. I tried to fade it, and I was wrong. Life is hard. But he looked really good, but it's 4,100. Oakland is bad against tight ends. I think that he's definitely in play here. If you're going to spend it, I think he's a very nice pivot off of Ryan Griffin. On the Oakland side of the ball, Amari Cooper is 5K. And he's also going to be really chalky at 5K after having 3 performances where he only had single-digit yards. And please, DFS gods, do not let this be the week that he breaks out of his slump, because I will have none of it.
Yeah, 5K, don't do it.
Oh, my God. I don't want him to go off this week. I'm so terrified, guys. I'm so terrified that he's going to go off at 5K when everybody is using him. I just don't want it to happen. That's basically my thoughts on this game. I just want Terrell Williams, and I want to fade Amari Cooper into the ground.
That's a lot of what I have. I want nothing to do with Cooper for the fact he's going to be chalky. I like Allen. I like Terrell Williams. I really like Mike Williams, who's coming back for San Diego, so we get $3,700. He's an explosive receiver that could be in for a big, big game as the number 3 wideout in that offense. I have no problem with Melvin Gordon. I know he's pricey. I think he gets lost in the Gurley and Fournette shuffle there in that range, and he's getting such a big share of that offense. I like the Chargers offense a ton in this game, but you also have to like the Raiders. Carr might go under-owned just because coming back from injury or whatever. 5,900, super cheap with Carr. Cook at 37, I love that call, James. And then Crab at 58, I think that's too cheap for his upside. So there's a lot of value to be had in this game. Bucks, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me. I do like Melvin Gordon at $7,800. Oakland's really not good against the run, and they give up a ton of catches as well. But like you mentioned, Fournette, Gurley, those guys make it difficult to bump down to Gordon. As far as receivers go, all of them are in play for me. I mean, Williams at 5,400 is solid, but everybody here is good. I mean, Oakland's corners are so banged up right now that any of them has a shot to go off. And Mike Williams, I'm interested to see what he's going to do. But Travis Benjamin at $4,300, another guy that has pretty high upside this week for value perspective. Now, the one guy, just from looking at the stats, the Chargers give up 161 rushing yards a game.
Yeah, I was wondering if someone was going to go here.
I mean, they are the worst in the league against the rush, and I understand he hasn't gotten the carries, but Marshawn Lynch at 5,000, it just screams him getting back into beast mode because the Chargers are that bad. And if Carr gets back in this week, are they going to try to ease him in and let Lynch just run all over the place? I hope that's the case because I'm fading both Crabtree and Cooper. I hope you're right. I hope Cooper is just like 30% owned to 5K because he's just bad right now. And I personally think that this screams Lynch this game. So I will likely have him on one of my teams and hope that this becomes a game where Oakland's in the red zone a few times and Lynch breaks off a run.
He found the end zone last week. It's definitely an option. I've hated the way they've used him this year. It's so inconsistently stupid. But I totally understand it. It makes tons of sense. It's an interesting game. That one, there's one other one we talked about earlier that could be really sneaky games to build your big games around, basically. Let's head to Sunday night, an potentially ugly one. Giants at Denver. Denver's a 12-point home favorite, over under a 40. So that gives you a 14-point team total for the Giants, who lost almost every receiver they have. Bucks, kick us off in Denver.
I mean, I got two things. I got C.J. Anderson that I like and Denver D, and that's it. Denver D may score 25 points.
They might outscore Adrian Peterson. James.
Yeah, they're going to score a lot more than Adrian Peterson. I can't remember the last time that I saw a team total this low.
It's bad.
Half over on most sites, 13.5 for Giants. I just want the Broncos defense because, good God, what is Eli Manning even going to do? And C.J. Anderson. I completely agree with Bucks on this one. I love C.J. Anderson if you're playing Thursday through Monday. I think that he is just one of the best plays on the slate. He was another lock of mine when I was first going over the slate. 6,600 is expensive, but I just think that this screams eat the clock out with C.J. Anderson. And we've been wanting to attack the Giants' rush defense for a couple weeks now because it's atrocious. So now when they might only score 3 points, legitimately, if they get over to the other side of the field, there's no way they're finding the end zone. I want C.J. Anderson, and I want the Broncos defense. And the one deep GPP play that I want is Shane Vereen. Because who else can Eli Manning even to? Who else? Mm-hmm. And that's all I got. Just Broncos defense, CJ, Shane Vereen.
Yep, Broncos D, Shane Vereen is not bad. I understand that. He's only 3,600. He'll have drives where he catches 5 dump-off passes on one drive. So you have that all day. But, yeah, the Broncos D, C.J. Anderson are the only two. And like you said, it makes for a great play for playing the Thursday through Monday slate. Only other guy I just don't like his price tag, Evan Ingram at 3,800 because, again, like you said, they have no one to throw to. They're going to line him up in the slot. They're going to line him up as a receiver. There's a lot of upside for a tight end going to get that kind of love, but I don't know if I could stomach it. I really don't.
I will say this one thing about Evan Ingram, and everybody is kind of assuming that they're going to line him up in the slot and at wide receiver, but I don't know that Ben McAdoo is that smart.
Well, he's not. That's true. That's very true, based on a lot of
about what they're going to do with this offense. Like, he is not smart enough to utilize such awful talent. I don't know. They're not going to win another game all year. Like, I think they just go completely. I don't think they win another game all year.
They're looking for Saquon Barkley in the draft.
Man.
Shit.
All right. Yeah, he'll torture the NFC East for you, Bucks.
Yeah.
Let's go Monday night. Another game with no spread, no totals. We're waiting on potentially Andrew Luck, who's practicing, and more likely we're waiting for Marcus Mariota news. You got the Colts at the Titans Monday night. Just, between Sunday and Monday night primetime is just on fire this weekend. James, kick us off on this one that actually could be slightly entertaining.
So I have a tentative line of Tennessee being 5-point favorites at home, 24-19. That's my guess line. I think that the Titans are still a much better team than Indiana, regardless of whether either quarterback plays. If Andrew Luck plays, then I can see that closing up to a field goal favorite, but I still think Tennessee is favored in this game. The Colts suck against the run. DeMarco Murray was the bell cow back last week, and I think that they will run him ragged for the next 2 games. I talked about it earlier today with a couple people, that DeMarco Murray has the Indianapolis Colts this week and then the Cleveland Browns next week. And I think that they run him into the ground until the bye week, and then they start splitting it up. So I think that DeMarco Murray is underpriced this week for the matchup. The Colts can't stop anything on the ground. And if Mariota doesn't play, and even if he does play, I think that they limit his workload and they just try to run the ball a whole bunch. They're already a team that runs 49% of the time. I could see it being 52, 53% of the time this week. So it's really just DeMarco Murray for me on the Tennessee side of the ball. Rashard Matthews is always in play if Marcus Mariota plays as a number 1 wide receiver who is always underpriced. The ball. I don't think that Andrew Luck will play, but if he does,
he's out.
T.Y. Hilton. I think you should play T.Y. Hilton regardless. Again,
yes.
Even if his price has gone up. Like last year, I took a top 10 finish in the Millie Maker based on T.Y. Hilton almost alone against the Titans because those zones. You hear me talk a lot about zone defenses. T.Y. Hilton just runs straight freaking through them and straight end zone on a streak. Like zones don't against guys like T.Y. Hilton. Exactly. So I think that we could see a lot of what T.Y. Hilton did last week. I think we could see it again this week. He's going to be a good play every week until Andrew Luck comes back because Jacoby Brissett cannot spread the ball out. He's just going to throw it to T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah.
And then Marlon Mack, I think you could start looking at as a legitimate option here pretty soon. He definitely has looked much better than Frank Gore, who's probably done. But, it's really just give me DeMarco Murray and give me T.Y. Hilton.
I absolutely love Murray at that price tag. A bell cow back at $5,200 is pretty darn awesome, especially against a team with a defense like the Colts. Hilton, Brissett, I don't even mind that combo because Brissett will run also at $5,800, so you're going to get value there. Mac, and then you can look at Moncrief at 37 if you want. He did start to find him a little bit last week, so that could be an option, but I'd stick to the basics, and you could have a nice little Monday night fun there, maybe stack it with the Thursday game of the prime time the following week. Bucks, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I really like Brissett and T.Y. with Andrew Luck being out. I mean, if you look at – and, again, I know he didn't convert, but last week, I mean, he had 22 completions for 315 yards, just no touchdowns. So, I mean, he had 22 points, I think. He had 22 points last week with no passing touchdowns. And I think that T.Y. Hilton's definitely going to catch one this week. So, T.Y. Hilton is a huge play for me. And outside of that, I mean, I really don't like much of anything in this slate other than Delaney Walker. I like Walker, and that's it.
Yeah. That's a good one. I did forgot about him. Very good one there. All right, that takes us through 14 games. Let's do a little bit of wraparound stuff. We'll kick it off with you, Bucks. Give us a couple of your core players.
Carson Palmer is definitely going to be my core. Fournette, Gurley, and then that's it right now. Deshaun Jackson, Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to say that's
Those four.
Yeah, we have the same course. That's good. Yeah, the only other guy I had outside, I had those four, and if I want to bargain, Smith-Schuster, I like him at 36. James, what's your core looking like?
I am heavy on Drew Brees at quarterback. I'm also heavy on Matt Ryan. I think that both of them are going to be really high. Leonard Fournette is going to be a really high-owned player for me as well, with Mark Ingram also in the mix. At wide receiver, I'm going to be all in on Deshaun Jackson. I'm not lying when I say I'm just going to lock him into every single lineup, all 20. He's just free square for me, and apparently for all of us. At tight end, I don't really have like a lock, but I think that Jordan Reed is a really good play this week at 5K. I think he can eat up that San Francisco defense. And if I see that Adrian Peterson is going to have 15-plus carries, then I might lock him in as well.
I got a question for you guys before we go to the next section here. So, like, I got my list of players I'm going to keep narrowing down. I know we talked about it on almost every game. There are a lot of, especially on the receiver position, guys in that 5 to 6K range we talked about. Do you think because there's so much, and we talked about it and probably many others are talking about it, is it worth making more of an effort to try to pay up a receiver and be different? Because the middle looks so easy, but it's so nice, but so easy. Do you think we should try to make an effort to adjust things?
I would say outside of Antonio Brown, I'm not paying up for anybody else this week.
Okay. So
even then, that one pick alone limits me everywhere else.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking, because like we've seen that every week, like with Lev Bell last week. It really changes your philosophy on things.
Well, so I mean, if you look at the guys, right, you got Keenan Allen, who's pricey, Cooks, who I think you have better options. You have Julio Jones, who I can't trust right now. DeAndre Hopkins, who's not going to catch 3 touchdowns, 2 in garbage time this week. And so you're automatically getting to the low 7s, which is where you get good with Michael Thomas, Jordan Nelson, Evans, those type of guys. So this is a week, it flip-flops quite a bit, but this is a week where I'm paying down at receiver because I think there's so many really, really good options at running back that I want.
No, I completely agree with that. I'm hearing that. I'm starting to hear that everywhere. That's why I'm starting to wonder if we should adjust. Do you have any thoughts on that, James?
Yeah, I think that the high-priced wide receivers are actually going to be more popular than the mid-range.
Really?
Yeah, because
Hopkins will be super popular.
Yeah, Antonio Brown had 22 targets last week, and I've already heard multiple people talking about him as one of their favorite wide receiver options. DeAndre Hopkins faces the Browns and is going to be paired with Deshaun Watson in like at least 20% of lineups across the industry. I don't think that Julio Jones will be highly owned because I think people will just go DeAndre Hopkins and Antonio Brown, but those two alone might carry a combined like 40% of the ownership.
I hope you're right.
So I think that more people will be on them, and then they'll just spread it out through the mid-range. I do think that eventually Deshaun Jackson is going to end up being super, super popular, but it's not like I care on that play. So I think that what it's going to end up being is people are going to find 2 low-priced quarterbacks or 2 low-priced running backs, more than likely somebody like Elijah McGuire and Alvin Kamara, and then just pay up at wide receiver and quarterback.
Yeah. No, I like it. I hope you're right about those receivers, and that's why I wanted to ask the question. Just have a quick strategy topic on that. Let's talk about our busts, and then we'll send it home. Bucks, who is your bust this week?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I would say my bust this week, just for ownership would be Deshaun Watson. I also think that Matt Stafford would be a bust for me at that position. As far as running back, I am not a fan of the Green Bay running backs, so they would definitely be in the bust category. And I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a bust this week.
Okay. What about you, James?
My main is going to be Ryan Griffin. I just don't really – he's kind of a below tight end, and I think he's going to be more popular than he should be.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about him this week.
Yeah, I think he's pretty easy bust for me. Deshaun Watson, you already called it. I think that he has a great floor, but I don't think that he – I don't know if I can call Deshaun Watson a bust because I still think that he puts up like 17 fantasy points. Like I still think that I don't think that he does what people want him to do, you know?
Yep.
And then at running back, I think that Kareem Hunt is the bust this week.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all.
I didn't want to go there for like the third straight week.
Yeah, that's Bucks Weekly. That and the Cowboys. That's Bucks. Yeah, there's a podcast with no Cowboys.
I know.
I just noticed that right now. Holy shit.
No Cowboys. The Eagles are going to get beat, and the Giants are terrible, so I'm happy.
Things are looking up for you this weekend. My bust, Tom Brady, $8,300. He's not going to meet value there if the game goes the way we think it's going to go. And everybody, I know he won't be as popular as normal, but everybody uses Tom Brady still. They think he's the best of the best, and usually he is. But I don't think he'll meet value at all. You look at Stephon Diggs. I think at $7,500, the price is starting a little too high for what we have with him right now. And at the running back position, Dougie Martin. I think that's going to be more of a throwing game. And as much as I love Doug Martin, this is not the game for Doug Martin to have. So with that being said, any final words, gentlemen? Nope.
Yeah, go Redskins. I think it's going to be a really good week, honestly. I think, like you mentioned earlier, all of us have been really close, so it's just a matter of time. And I think all of us are kind of on the same page strategy-wise this week, so I think we have a good chance of hitting big.
It's coming. What about you, James?
Nope. I'm excited to have another good week. Like I made $9 last week. Let's make $900 this week.
Yeah.
Keep moving up.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, thanks for joining me again, guys, for the 2-point conversion at NFL DFS podcast. Again, you can find Bucks on Twitter at BPSnow11. James is at paydirt_DFS, and I am at BDentric. Good luck this week. We'll catch you guys later.